All right, guys, we are back, and this week is a special week because we have a little bit different flavor this week. This is the first time ever in Drive On history that we have our first RC scale drift car. This is a little bit out of my comfort zone as per usual. Before we get started, special shout out to my buddy Jeff, also known as 7Demo7. I'll put links down to all of his stuff below. He's doing awesome YouTube content, and he was the one that really helped steer me in the right direction when getting into the drifting scene. Now, just like in real life drifting, the RC drift scene is also a little bit niche and a little bit underground. So when I started doing a little bit of research on where to start, basically, it was a little bit difficult to find some good answers. Now, there are some good articles, some good forums out there. I reached out to Jeff because he's been part of the flight test family for a long time. I also knew that he was very heavily into drifting. And so what we have today is we have the MST, which stands for Max Speed Technology. This is the MST RMX 2.0. This is a ready to race or ready to drift kit. And as you can see, it is a gorgeous model. This is one of the few models that actually looks even better in real life than it does on camera. Amazing detail. So right out of the box, not only does it come with a body, but it is actually a Tamiya or a Tamiya, however you pronounce it. It is the Mercedes AMG GT3. Not only is it a nice quality body, but it also even comes pre-painted and pre-decaled. There is some assembly required. I had to assemble the spoiler. There's actually quite a bit of scale detail, which is part of the reason why it looks so amazing. Both the headlights and the taillights have little inserts, so it kind of gives it a little bit more three-dimension. I didn't really think that would be a big deal, but it adds so much scale detail to the model. I built the spoiler, added the mirrors on the side. You had to drill the holes for the body. Overall, it wasn't too big of a deal. So in terms of drifting, I don't know the specific details, but I do know that they don't race, but they do actually have competitions, and that's what my buddy Jeff was telling me. That's why he said go for the rear-wheel drive, because all of the guys that get into competition drifting, you're going to be using two-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive. He said four-wheel drive was actually called power sliding, and technically speaking, it's not drifting. So you definitely want to do two-wheel drive, and these guys will drift, and it's not actually a race. They're actually judged based on style, technique, consistency. It's based off your drifting ability, not how fast you go around the track. The way that the drift is achieved is by the performance of the car, obviously, but also the tires. The tires play a huge part. Now, these look like regular on-road tires, but they're actually a very hard plastic, and so that's going to allow you, whether it's on concrete or on carpet, to spin out, and that's what gives you that rear end driftability. So right out of the box, this thing comes with the car. Obviously, the body, it does come with a radio. It comes with a brushless motor pre-installed. It comes with a servo pre-installed. It even has a gyro system, which we'll get into that in just a second. And most importantly of all, it comes pre-assembled and pre-tuned. Now, I was looking at a couple different manufacturer drift cars, and that's what, when I reached out to my buddy Jeff and I asked him, hey man, this is a little bit overwhelming, what would you recommend? I'm considering this MST, and he was like, yes, definitely do the MST. And the reason why, he said, is that it comes pre-built. That's important, but it also comes pre-tuned. So MST actually tests all these right after assembly to make sure that they are up to their standard performance protocol. So when you get this thing and you power it on, it is going to work just like a perfectly tuned drift car that an expert hobbyist would have made and tuned, which is pretty cool. It takes out some of those learning curves that I have no idea about and allows me to get right into trying to improve my skills at drifting without having to worry about whether or not my car is tuned properly or not. So it is a 1/10 scale model. It has a 257 millimeter long wheelbase, and the width is 190 millimeters. This one specifically is rear wheel drive, and that is another point that my buddy Jeff made, is because there's also some four-wheel drive ones available, which look really cool, but he said that proper drift cars are all rear wheel drive. He said that when you buy the four-wheel drive ones, they are a lot of fun, but he said technically speaking, from the drift enthusiast perspective, when you have four-wheel drive, you're technically power sliding, you're not technically drifting. So rear wheel drive is the way to go. The turning radius, or the amount of travel in the front wheels, is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's darn near perpendicular to the body of the car, which is pretty amazing. All that means is when you are drifting around, it's going to give you extra control, so you can keep that drift from getting out of control, and you can bring that rear end around as far as possible while still maintaining the control as you're drifting around obstacles. So when you pop the body off, first thing you notice is that it is a very clean finish. After you run it a couple times, it is a great indicator of how clean or dirty your floor is, because it picks up all kinds of dust. So when you get it, make sure you either run it on a very clean floor or just don't get used to it being that clean, because it'll never be that clean again. The other thing that you notice is the amount of adjustments under the hood is pretty remarkable. Just for example, both the motor and the servo have two mounting positions. Now they come pre-mounted. I'm assuming that just allows you to adjust the desired performance depending on what you're trying to do. It'll adjust the CG, no different than our airplanes that you guys know that we love so much. But that goes all the way into the suspension. All around the suspension has tons of mounting points, basically to adjust the angles of the suspension to change the desired performance of your drift car. To be frank with you guys, I don't know the first thing about tuning these things, but the cool thing about a kit like this, it gives you that flexibility and it gives you that room to grow with your car. So right out of the box, ready to race, you're gonna have a great experience, but as you get to know your vehicle a little bit more, you learn more about drifting techniques and tuning, you can make those adjustments all right here with your car, which is pretty cool. It is using steel axles on the rear wheels, which is super nice. It does have metal ball connectors throughout the whole entire chassis, no plastic, so it's going to be very, very smooth travel. It has realistic calipers on the wheels, which obviously is more of an aesthetic thing, but just to keep in mind, that is one of the things you're paying for with these types of models, especially the ones that come ready to race with a painted body. You're paying a lot for that painted body. It does have a sealed gearbox as well, so like I said, it does pick up a lot of dust. You're not gonna have to worry too much about that getting in your gears, and also the gears are fully customizable, so as you grow with the car, you are gonna be able to swap out gears to get the desired performance that you're looking for. Now, like I said earlier, this is my first experience with a true proper drift car. We played a little bit around with the HPI Unicorn and some other on-road cars, but as we have learned, those aren't proper drift cars. So getting this one, I was curious to see how different it is, and it turns out that it's very, very different experience. Part of it is, like I said earlier, the wheels. The plastic wheels, obviously, they make you spin out. You just touch the throttle and you start burning rubber, which is pretty cool. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you learn how to manage your energy, it becomes more and more fun, and there is a ton of technique and finesse involved in getting this thing to do what you want. Obviously, when you first start, you're just gonna kind of burn out and do donuts like a madman, but as you get used to it, you learn how to whip that rear end around. Basically, throttle management is huge. It's no different than a lot of the other hobbies. Your throttle management is everything, and then mix it in with the steering with this crazy steering resolution on the front. That is how you achieve the drift that you're looking for. Driving this car for the first time is definitely a fun time. Actually, I drove it on carpet first at home, just because it was where I was. I was a little unsure if I had enough room in my little downstairs game room to drive this thing, but it turns out as you really get to learn the muscle memory of how to maneuver this thing around, you can actually control these things in a really, really small space. You do need a smooth surface. It's actually pretty particular. This thing, as you can see, is extremely low to the ground. You can actually run these and have a good time in a relatively small space. Now, that being said, they do have larger spaces that you can do, and that brings me to my next point, which is one of the biggest selling features of this thing, is it has a gyro system inside. It's called the LSD-X, and I believe it's made by MST, and it's no different than a lot of our quadcopters and airplanes that we fly. It is a gyro system that is hooked up to the steering that is going to assist you in your drifting as you are driving the car around. Now, basically what that means is it has accelerometers inside. It is going to make micro corrections to basically keep your car in the direction that you are headed towards. Basically, what it allows you to do is it keeps you on track in the direction that you are intending without it just like spinning out like crazy. For example, if you take your transmitter and you do not touch the steering at all, you keep the wheels dead straight and you just gun it, the back wheels are gonna spin. And when the rear end starts to spin around, the gyro hooked up to the steering is going to compensate to keep you going in a straight line. Now, a lot of guys prefer to drive without it. As a beginner drifter, the gyro system in something like this is something that is going to help you out immensely. Now, that being said, it does have a couple different modes. It has S, L, and H mode, and basically those are just three different tunes basically for different types of things. I believe one is for a tighter short track, one is for a longer, kind of wide open, higher speed track, and then the other one I believe is just like a standard mode. I did play around with them a little bit, and it's actually pretty cool how well it works. You can actually see the front wheels making adjustments for you. Now that being said, it does feel natural. It doesn't feel like somebody else is driving the car. It just makes it a little bit easier to drift. I did try hooking it up and driving it without it, and I will say that my skills are not there. I know that a lot of people prefer to drive without the gyros, but for me, I'm going to be driving with this for a while. It's a ton of fun. It makes it feel, and when you're driving this car around, it's not terribly heavy, but when you drive it, it feels like it weighs as much as a real Mercedes AMG. Like you can really feel the weight. You're spinning that back end around. It carries its momentum really, really nice. That being said, the drift style of driving and just the drift hobby in general is something that I've really grown to like over the short time that I've had this. It reminds me in a lot of ways of the scale crawler scene. Obviously two very, very different hobbies, but there is an emphasis on scale in both of them, and it's not all about speed, and that's something that I kind of like. It's like a little bit slower paced. The number one thing that I like about it is it keeps your cars in really, really nice condition. A lot of times you buy a $400 or $500 short course truck or a stunt truck or something like that, and the whole idea with those things is to like beat the snot out of them. So inevitably you break things, inevitably it gets a little beat up because you're driving it hard and you're running into stuff and you're jumping it as high as you can. And don't get me wrong, that's exhilarating, that's fun. It is for a lot of people. I personally enjoy that too. The thing I like about crawling and drifting, it's a little bit lower risk. So you can have a ton of fun. You can kind of push your vehicle the way it's meant to be pushed, and you don't have to worry about it wearing out. You don't have to worry about it getting dinged up. I've driven multiple packs through this thing, and it still looks almost as good as when I got it out of the box. And when you're not using it, you can leave it out on display, and it doesn't look like you're getting your table dirty because you have your Traxxas Revo, which is covered in dirt and mud and stuff like that. All in all, the price point is high. It's a very expensive kit. It comes in at $369, ready to race, but to put it into perspective, the gyro that it comes with, the LSD-X from MST, that's a $70 value alone. Not to mention the Tamiya body, those come in at a decent price as well, and then this one is pre-painted and pre-decaled. So you are getting a lot out of it. Now there are some other cheaper options that might be better to start with, but if you're looking to get into it and you think you're going to enjoy it, the MST RMX series is what it sounds like is a staple in the drift scene. According to my buddy Jeff, it is a great way to start because you're getting a really, really solid performer right out of the box, and there's plenty of room to grow and to learn, to customize, to modify. And you can take this to, if you have a drift club near you, you can take this thing down to the club and you're gonna be able to hang with the guys as soon as you get your skills up to the point where you can drive like they're driving. So that being said, I am super happy with it. It's been a ton of fun. I'm gonna keep driving it, and eventually I'm gonna keep modifying it and learning. I think the crawling and drifting is probably my two new favorites on the surface category. That being said, we're gonna put links down below to not only this, they are a little bit hard to come by. It seems like they're hot items. I got this one specifically from A-Main. We'll put links down to this car as well as the other kits that I mentioned in this video. As per usual, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Hope you enjoyed this. Let us know if you guys are drifting. If you're using MST, if you're using another brand, all you drifters out there, leave us a comment down below. As per usual, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already, and until the next one, we'll see you guys later.